It's never too early for Lowe's Black Friday deals. Snag some of our biggest savings of the season right now, like 25% off select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees. And get yourself free select DeWalt, Cobalt, or Craftsman tools when you buy a select battery or combo kit before the Black Friday rush. Because everyone loves free stuff, right? Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 12/3 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. This is a big news morning, both on the international level and on the national level. And so what I want to try to do is to cover as much as I can in the roughly 15 minutes that we have together. First, the President of the United States has signed the bill. The Epstein files theoretically are going to be released. I say theoretically because remember that the President ordered Pam Bondi to make sure that the Democrats were looked into, that the investigation was to continue. And the question becomes, if there is an investigation going on, can you in fact release documentation? I was asked by a very interested listener why Joe Biden never pursued this when he was president. And the simple truth is, the Maxwell case was still pending. And as a result, items dealing with Epstein could not be released. It doesn't excuse the fact that it wasn't released, but it does explain the tactic that Donald Trump may be using. That is to say, that he will express the view that while investigation is pending, no action should be taken that would embarrass or compromise anything. And of course, his major line is, he doesn't want to embarrass the victims. Well, of course, the victims have said, let it all out. We want it out. We want people to know. And will the victims' wishes be respected? And what about Pam Bondi and her role? After all, she is supposed to be an independent Attorney General of the United States. She's not supposed to be Donald Trump's Attorney General. The job of the Attorney General is not to represent the President of the United States, nor to follow his instructions. We learned that during the Nixon days. Remember Elliot Richardson? He resigned as Attorney General of the United States. And Ruckelshaus resigned as Deputy Attorney General because they would not do what the White House wanted. This, to me, is absolutely critical. We are clearly not at the end of the Epstein investigation. Let me say a word about Larry Summers stepping back. Larry Summers made a huge error, and he is paying the price. And all of those who were involved in Epstein's trafficking should pay the price. These are the simple realities. It shouldn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It shouldn't matter whether you voted for Trump or opposed Trump. What should matter is that the truth should come out. I must tell you that this is something that has consumed us. But more than that, the Republican Party is now at odds with the President of the United States. And it would appear that the leader of the Republicans in the House and the leader of the Republicans in the Senate are also at odds with each other. I don't know what this means in terms of the long-term political viability of the Republican Party. But wait. Have you been listening to Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz is now a podcaster. And by the way, a very effective podcaster. And he is making clear that he may seek the presidency of the United States in 2028. In short, there may be a Republican free-for-all between J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and Ted Cruz. Because once Trump is gone, he who has sucked up the air for all of these years, there will be new faces emerging. Oh, I know they're not really new. They're people we are familiar with. But let me just point out, during the campaign of 2016, I coined a phrase, let's put the country on cruise control. A lot of people laughed at it, and by the way, so did I. But the simple truth is, there will be a battle for the future of the Republican Party. And Donald Trump, will he or will he not play a role? It depends very much on what happens with the Epstein matter and how the Republicans handle it and how the president handles it. By the way, did you notice there was no White House signing? The press was not invited in to witness the president signing the legislation. That tells you a lot, doesn't it? And of course, yesterday I talked about the fact that words matter and the fact that the White House and the Speaker played down the entire Epstein matter and then had to cave because of popular demand. That will also be something we will discuss. And the country will discuss it. And certainly the Republican Party will debate it. Now, with your permission, I'm going to leave the Epstein matter, although we'll keep following it. I want to come to another matter. The president has proposed a 28-point plan for peace in Ukraine. Now, let me explain. No one has seen the plan. We understand it is 28 points. We understand that it calls for territorial concessions by Ukraine and a cutback in their armed forces. That's what the news reports are saying. Well, let me explain to you that Ukraine is not going away. And I doubt that Volodymyr Zelensky can accept such a plan. The Ukrainians have made clear that they will not allow territorial concessions. They want their land, and that includes Crimea. And the idea that they would cut back on their military forces at a time when they are under attack nightly, daily, by the Russians. And make no mistake, the media isn't covering it the way it ought to be covered. But have you seen what is going on in Ukraine? Have you seen the devastation? Have you seen the incredible problems that Ukraine will face? Let me explain to you that international affairs should consume a disproportionate amount of a president's time. And there is no doubt that Donald Trump wants to see a deal cut in Ukraine. Of course, let me remind you, he wants the Nobel Prize for Peace. He is campaigning for the Nobel Prize for Peace. And that also is highly problematic. Are you looking at what's going on in Gaza? There is no peace in Gaza. In fact, the entire situation in Gaza is out of control, and Hamas clearly is not willing to accept Donald Trump's 20-point plan. So on the international level, where it really matters, there seems to be a stalemate in the two most dramatic and contentious areas in foreign policy, Ukraine and Gaza. These are the simple realities. And now, if I can, I'd like to focus for a moment on domestic concerns again. First, let's deal with the case of James Comey and the fact that at least one judge is suggesting that there are real flaws in the argument being made by the Trump administration relative to James Comey. There is no doubt that Donald Trump wants revenge, and there is no doubt that he instructed his Justice Department, as he calls it, to go to work and indict James Comey. And so James Comey has been indicted, but now there are real questions about the indictment itself. Did the grand jury see the indictment? How was this all put together? What was left out? And when you listen to former federal prosecutors, some of whom I hasten to point out are Republicans, they are saying that this indictment of James Comey is flawed. And that means that it's entirely possible that in the not too distant future, this indictment may be thrown out. And what will that say about the president? I had a long discussion with a close friend the other day about whether or not Donald Trump was abusing his office. And the answer is, most assuredly he is. The Comey case is just an example. But can you imagine now they're going after Adam Schiff? That's right, the man who Donald Trump calls Shifty Schiff. No, my friends. This is a fascinating moment, a moment in which the Trump administration is being called to the bar of justice. And how will that turn out? It's a very good question. And let's discuss yet another aspect of Trump's plan to control the House of Representatives. Do you understand that his redistricting plans are being thrown out? That's right. It appears that despite the Republicans' best efforts at the instigation of Donald Trump, that the plan for redistricting, whether it is in Texas or Indiana, has hit a stumbling block. And indeed, the Speaker of the Indiana House is saying, no, I don't like this. And what did Donald Trump do? He immediately accused that Speaker of the House of being a rhino and talked about primarying him. There is no doubt that within the Republican Party, there will be a struggle. Now, I've been asked if I were a Republican loyalist who supported Trump's policies, how would I proceed? And I want to answer very directly. The policies are one thing, but the fact that Donald Trump is instigating in the way he is, that's another thing. And it means that it seems to me that the Republicans, in battling for the succession to Donald Trump, will separate themselves, if they can, from Donald Trump, the man, and Donald Trump presidential policies. I mentioned this the other day. One of Richard Nixon's harshest critics remarked after Watergate, "We reject Nixon the man, but we support what he did as president." That is to say, going to China, détente with Russia, the EPA, the question of battling cancer. In other words, to separate oneself and one's political party from the negatives of Donald Trump's personality, yet embracing what his policies have meant to America. Now, that has complications because we know that overwhelmingly Americans reject certain key elements of Trump's policies. So, for the Republicans, it's a tightrope. And whoever assumes the mantle of leadership must be independent of Donald Trump's personality. Is that possible? When you have a president of the United States who makes himself the center of everything, can you embrace policies and ignore what this president has done and is doing? So I'm watching now carefully, after the midterm elections, what will emerge as the struggle for leadership in the Republican Party. There are real issues that need to be confronted. And the Republican Party, because they control the House and the Senate, well, they're on the spot. Now, that's the interesting aspect of the midterm elections. And a year from now, we'll know the outcome. If the Democrats take control of the House, there will be a change, a dramatic change, in terms of investigations, in terms of criticism. And can you imagine a Speaker Hakeem Jeffries leading the charge? That's the question. For the Democratic Party, they too are at a crossroads. The Republicans and the Democrats have a lot in common because in the next presidential campaign, if everything proceeds, it will be a campaign of non-incumbents. The Democratic nominee and the Republican nominee will not be incumbents. And that, my friends, will make it, well, like 1960 or like 1988, when you have someone running who is not president of the United States. And that makes a difference. Well, these are some thoughts this morning, and I know there will be a lot to talk about tomorrow. And may I tell you, I can't wait. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and click any of the links on the show for the notes to connect with me on social media. And of course, you can contact me directly. Remember to share this episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. That is, of course, our goal. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow. And in the meantime, remember, we now have ads at the beginning and at the end of this podcast. The show, as you know, has been getting so much positive attention that we're excited to bring this advertising support on. This will help us create more opportunities for Around the Political World with John Rothman, and we're happy to share this good news with all of you. So stay tuned for tomorrow, right here. I'll be back. Give me your feedback. And may I say, it's going to be interesting. The next 24 hours, who knows what may happen. I am John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'll see you tomorrow.